Welcome to the Women's Football Show. I'm joined today by Alison McConnell and the returning Cara Henderson. The league season is over. Hibernian are the champions. It's quite an incredible achievement from Grant Scott's side, and we'll be looking back on that finale as well as looking ahead to the Scottish Cup final. First of all though, Cara, you're back with us.
Yes.
You've been gone so long, we've had a change of set.
I was about to say, I was sitting, I didn't know how to approach it, but you know, I'm delighted to be back. It's been a long few weeks, an entertaining few weeks since I've been away, a lot of twists and turns, but a very exciting end yesterday.
And we'll get into it in a bit more detail later on, but just very briefly, how have you been since the injury, and what is the injury? So
it's a bad one. There's quite a few things wrong, unfortunately. So I've undergone surgery for a meniscal repair, so that was step one. And unfortunately, I've also ruptured my ACL, so that is the next operation to come. So it's all looking a wee bit daunting right now, I've got to be honest. But I feel like having the first operation, I feel like I'm a wee bit step closer to, obviously, an eventual return. It looks like a long time till I return, but I'm excited to try and, you know, get myself back on, and the rehab, it'll take care of itself probably, is the way I'm looking at it.
Well, we'll be hearing more from Cara about that later on in the show, and also on the developments at Partick Thistle as well. But let's first of all look at the weekend's results in the final day of the SWPL season. It was, of course, Rangers 0, Hibernian 1 at Ibrox, Celtic 6, Motherwell 0, Glasgow City 2, Hearts 0, Queen's Park 0, Aberdeen 3, Spartans 1, Partick Thistle 2, and Montrose 4, Dundee United 0. And let's see how that leaves the table out for the final day of the season. Then, of course, Hibs at top spot as champions. Glasgow City in there at second. They take that second Champions League qualifying spot. Rangers finishing third, last season's champions. Celtic in at fourth. Hearts in at fifth, and Motherwell in at sixth. And then the bottom half, Partick Thistle, of course, top of the bottom teams, followed by Aberdeen, Montrose, Spartans, Queen's Park, and Dundee United. Dundee United, Queen's Park, and Spartans, of course, relegated. Hamilton Accies back up to the top flight at the first time of asking. Alison, if you can you sum up what an incredible achievement that is for Grant Scott and his Hibs side to win the title? They are the champions.
I think it's extraordinary. I think when you look at the budgets of the teams that they're up against, they are considerably behind in terms of resources. I think over the last couple of weeks he had spoken a couple of times when he referenced the uncoachables that he had within his squad, and he pointed to a real camaraderie, a real togetherness within that squad. I thought that was very evident yesterday, and I think it's been very evident across the run-in. I think Hibs have had the hardest run-in. When you look at the fixture list, they had to play Glasgow City last weekend, they had to play Celtic on Wednesday, and then of course they had to finish by going to Ibrox and playing Rangers in front of their own support. So I think more than worthy winners. I think they are a very well coached team. I think they're an organised team. I think there are no real individuals that you would say are superstars within that team. I think they have good players. I think they have an experienced spine. Super impressed by Siobhan Hunter yesterday and in a couple of games that I've seen her this season. I think Kathleen McGovern and Ailey Adams have been exceptional. Two very exciting young strikers. Both very, very good seasons. Obviously, Kathleen McGovern's been called up into the Scotland squad in the back of a campaign where she's netted 25 goals. Had a huge part in setting up that goal yesterday to her tenacity to keep the ball in play. But I think a glorious achievement for Hibs to go and win a title, first time in almost 2 decades, and to do it with the resources that they have and against the challenges that they were up against. It's remarkable.
Yeah, do you think it's even more impressive? Not only have they won it, but in this season of all seasons where it's been so competitive from beginning to end?
I think it has been competitive. It's a competitive league. I think there's no doubt about it, particularly post-split. This is a league that goes to the wire pretty much every season. It's going down. You have teams there capable of really manipulating any slip. So if you know that if you lose ground at all, it really can be fatal. So I think to have played with that kind of pressure on them and been so consistent, it's an extraordinary achievement, especially when you look at the kind of players that Rangers have, quality international players all over the pitch. The same with Glasgow City, the same with Celtic who finished fourth. I think you have to doff your cap to Grant Scott and say a particularly a really, really good achievement to go and deliver that title.
Yeah, absolutely. Cara, you're sort of in a unique situation. Before the injury, you came up against this Hibs side on the pitch. Did you see even early on in the season that they had the mark of champions? Because to your credit, you were one person on here who said, you know, look out for Hibs, they're going to keep going. I had the thing of Leicester City in my head from the Premier League a few years ago where you think, well, they've won this game, but they're going to drop at some point, but they've gone all the way to the end.
Yeah, I mean, just echoing what Alison said, I think a huge amount of credit has to go their way, because I actually think people potentially before the start of the season would have put Hearts above them, you know, and not even in any sort of contention for it. So huge credit. I actually think the recruitment was so smart. You know, like I've played with a lot of the girls like just over my career, and all of these girls have got parts in their games that are game changers. So the one yesterday, Lindsay Taylor, played with Lindsay for 2 years at Thistle, and Lindsay is one of the smartest players I've played with. And yesterday, when you see the way that she breaks out of the box, plays a 1-2, continues her run, gets herself in the right area, finishes it so calmly as well, that's your centre half doing that, and Lindsay's always been able to have that. And people maybe didn't realise that you're going, you know, they're picking a player up from Partick Thistle, but it was really smart recruitment because they saw the player that was in Lindsay. And I think that's probably what's happened, is they underestimated their recruitment. They didn't necessarily go overseas and pick lots of players. They went and they got, you know, players from good that were playing well in Scotland, and I think they've all come together. And when you played against them, I think what I always thought is I always looked at the bench and thought, wow, you know, they could be starting. There was times where you'd look at the bench, you have, you know, like Abby Ferguson, Tegan Bowie was on the bench, or Kathleen or Ailey Adams were on the bench when they were rotating. There was always players on that bench that you would look at. Even yesterday, you know, a Thistle player again, Callie Gibbs, she's starting the game. You're looking at there's so much depth in that squad, and they've taken care of their players as well, which I think is really important. And as I said, I just think that they deserve so much credit for what they've done.
Yeah, well, after yesterday's title win, Hibs manager Grant Scott said that his team did dare to dream, and they still can't believe they've won it.
It's difficult to take in, if I'm honest. I think we've spent a number of definitely weeks, maybe months, internally just, you know, daring to dream. Why shouldn't it be us if we just kept producing the performances? So yeah, to have it here, I'm not sure what to think about tomorrow morning, but look, I think it's an unbelievable achievement.
Alison, with obviously becoming champions, Hibs get that qualifier into the Champions League. We saw how difficult that was for Celtic this season and the effect that it had on their domestic campaign. Do you think that's a bit of a warning for Grant Scott? They must recruit well in the summer.
I think it's difficult. I think the reality is it's a massive jump when you start broaching that kind of territory. I think it is also quite tough to actually get there, to actually make it into the group stages is difficult. Celtic had a bit of fortune last season that they both home legs of the playoff were both played at Airdrie because of circumstances elsewhere, which I think is probably hugely beneficial. So actually making it into the group stages is it's quite a step still. You've got to get through the qualifying process. It can be fairly arduous. I do think it's a lot kinder a journey through the champions route than the non-champions route. I think Glasgow City will have their work cut out for them trying to negotiate a pathway into the group stages. But for Hibs, I think it'll be broken down into two elements. I think one will be the initial qualification phase, and then if they are successful in terms of getting into the group stages, they will know it's a really demanding schedule to juggle for the opening 4 months of the campaign, where you're effectively playing 3 games a week every week. And then if you have international breaks, you've got players away and then coming back and then straight back into it. And I do think you look at the teams in the Champions League, they are light years ahead of where Scotland is at the minute in terms of leagues, in terms of everything that goes around it, squad depth, sports science, the physical resources that are there to help players and to manage that. I think we saw it last season with Celtic. I think it's a really significant bridge to cross, but I think it is one you want teams to be there. Players will be desperate to be there. You want to go and challenge yourself against the very, very best, and I think you want to see it. You want to be exposed to what is the top level, what do we need to do, and as a league we also need to learn from it. We need to say, well, if this is where we want our clubs to be playing and we want to be competing against the best, then what is it that we have to do as a league to facilitate that, and what is it that we can do to raise the standard? Because repeated exposure to Champions League football has a positive effect on the league, but it's maybe not quite as simplistic as saying, well, there's a huge benefit to being there. There are all sorts of challenges involved in it.
And it's, as Alison says there, it is a huge jump going from obviously Scottish League to the Champions League, and we saw it with Celtic, and I think it was maybe sort of a shell shock to the system of a lot of the players who just weren't used to it, not just the games and the teams, but everything surrounding it, the media, the travelling, all that stuff as well.
I think it's everything that comes with it. I think it's, as you said, the travelling, but I just think it is the mental and physical fatigue. It takes its toll, and you're doing that while the league is so competitive. Like you saw it this year, you saw it the past couple of seasons. If you were playing Champions League midweek, whereas a team, so say Celtic this season, there was points where they were playing, say, Rangers on the Sunday, Chelsea on the Wednesday, and then having to maybe face the Glasgow City, Hibs, Hearts. You know, that is brutal, taxing. And I think that what I would say is that I don't know right now if the league, because it's so, you know, full-time, part-time still, that's very difficult to accommodate as well for them in terms of the days that they can. And I think that it's hard to do both, and that's what you saw with Celtic, is that nobody wants to go in the Champions League and you're playing Chelsea and Real Madrid and you don't want to get beaten heavily. That is not something. So you are fielding your strongest team, of course, but then you also want to try and maintain a league challenge. That's very, very difficult in the circumstances of the league. So I think that repeated exposure is so important, but I also think that it's doing that in a way that we keep building. It's not just that we're putting a team in and then the team, you know, then they fall. What is it, Celtic finishing fourth this season?
Pointless,
yeah. You know, I think it's got to be that we keep building so that the league can maintain that and that teams can actually compete in both competitions as well.
Well, after losing the title on the final day, Rangers manager Joe Potter said that over the course of the season, Hibs deserved to win.
They've got real defenders. They've got players in there that want to put their head and their body on the line. They know how to manage a game. They know all the dark arts and what it takes to get through a game that way, which is football. Which, you know, it's not nice when you're on the receiving end of it, but it's great when you're in that camp. And it's full credit to them. I said at the end, like, they were fully deserved winners. I think they've been super consistent over the season, and they've done exactly what they've needed to do week in, week out to win this league.
Alison, Joe Potter, they're gracious in defeat. Do you think there's now going to be question marks over her job?
I think inevitably. I think really Joe Potter was brought in to deliver a title to Rangers, and I think now you would look at it and say that's 2 campaigns where they have just fallen short. She said it felt worse than last season. Last season they lost, obviously, by a kick of the ball, the last kick of the ball, and they lost a league by a solitary goal on goal difference. I think what will make it feel worse this season is the fact that this was in Rangers' hands. It was entirely within their grasp, and they should be able to go and beat Hibs at Ibrox. I think it's inevitable that questions are asked now. I think it's maybe not the right point on this morning when they've got a Scottish Cup to go and fight for at the weekend, but I think inevitably there are questions asked when a manager who is the best resourced team in the league doesn't deliver a title.
Yep, and as Alison said there, of course, the Scottish Cup final at the weekend. At Hampden, they've got to face Glasgow City. Just in terms of the players and the manager, how do they lift themselves off the canvas? Because I imagine even if they do win that trophy, the disappointment of that will linger on.
Totally. I mean, the league's the bread and butter, isn't it? It's what you want to win. But I think that they've got no better opportunity to put that anger, that disappointment towards something and go win a Scottish Cup, because that's, you know, they can end their season on a high. Technically they can, but I think it's really difficult because there's so much that goes into it, and I think that the emotion of yesterday being at Ibrox, probably them all believing, of course, that they were going to go and be able to do it, was in their hands. That would be really, really difficult. It'll definitely leave a sombre mood in the camp, but as I said, I think that you've got no better opportunity now. They've got, I think if that was just the end of their season yesterday, I think you'd be going into that being, oh my goodness. But the fact they've got a cup final now to go, also it's Glasgow City, it'll be a very tough game. I think if they can go and do something in that game, it won't exactly rectify what they'll have wanted this season, but I do think that it'll definitely leave them in better spirits heading into the next campaign.
Yep, and you said that they brought Joe Potter in to win the league. Do you think the club will see this season as a success if she gets the cup double?
I think I'm not sure it's seen as entirely. It's hard to say it's not successful. You've got 2 cups, but I do think the be-all and end-all was winning the title. Yeah. I think it was all about winning the league. So I think you have to frame it in a realistic sense. There will be a partial satisfaction at claiming both domestic cups, but I think it leaves a question mark over many aspects of this squad, and the biggest one for me is that this is a team that don't seem to handle pressure at points. They don't seem able to cope when there is a scrutiny on them. I think when you look at how Rangers performed in the League Cup, the Sky Sports Cup final back in March at Vere Park, when they annihilated Hibs, particularly in the second half, they just ran over the top of them. I think you look at Rangers and you say they are a better team. They have better players, so why are they falling short when it comes to winning the league? Where have they not delivered and what have they not done? And to me it comes down to choking in bigger games. They lost to Hibs, they lost to Glasgow City at Ibrox, and then they've lost to Hibs again. So that's twice losing to Hibs post-split. I think you would have to say it's not good enough for a team with the resources that they have.
Yeah, we look at Glasgow City, they finished second, so they get the qualifier for the Champions League. It's the non-champions pathway. You would rather have it than not, but it's such a difficult task for them, isn't it?
Incredibly difficult, and I think it takes quite a lot out of you in terms of the financially, the preparations that go into it, being able to go, and obviously you have this mini tournament to play into. I think it's exacting, but yeah, I think it is a very, very difficult journey to try and get yourself into the group stages of the Champions League.
Cara, where do you think Leanne Ross's head will be at? Because they've, what they've got in that team, they've missed out in the title again, and next season is probably only going to get more difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I felt Glasgow City competed really well this year. I thought that I felt playing against them, I thought that they were better this season as well. I thought that they were moving the ball really fast. They had some really good players, but I suppose the thing is that Hibs they're a great example. Every single season is a completely new slate, and I think that you can see that it's all about having the consistency, because Hibs, when you speak about Rangers, I think Rangers could probably pinpoint the games that they could say that's where the league was lost, whereas Hibs were just so consistent throughout head down, and they played in the big games, they showed up and they got the job done, Even the other night with Celtic, they breezed past Celtic the other night, and you're looking at their run-in and you're like, well, it's a really tough, they got to get past Celtic, they got to get past Rangers, and they got 6 points out of it. So
took 7 out of 9 across the last, and that's Glasgow City, Celtic and Rangers.
And we speak so much about, Glasgow City, Rangers for that matter, Celtic as well, having players to cope in the big pressure moments because they've been there and they've done that. That's a Hibs team with a lot of young players that hadn't been in that position, and they didn't crumble at all. So I think Leanne Ross will probably be thinking, great to get in the Champions League, that's definitely a success. But I think all managers in the top 5 teams will know that if they can get things right and they've got the right blend and they can keep players healthy, I think there's a chance for any of them.
Yeah, we have to talk about Celtic as well, of course. The first last season, 4th this season. I don't think you can say anything other than that is a failure by Elena Sadiku.
Yeah, I think it's been an appalling campaign for Celtic. I think when we speak about questions being asked, I think Hibs winning the league raises awkward questions in boardrooms for a number of clubs, and certainly Celtic would, I think, be one of them. I think it's been a desperately poor campaign, and you can talk about the impact of Champions League football, and it clearly had, clearly dented Celtic in the opening half of the season, but they came back from the Christmas break and they were 6 points adrift with 2 games in hand. They won those 2 games, and so they were back on level points by the end of January for the run-in. No distraction then of Champions League football. They went out of both cups, so it really was a focus purely on the league. I think, again, you have to question why they haven't been able to win the bigger games. They beat Glasgow City in the second game of the season. Other than that, they really toiled when they came up. They didn't beat Rangers all season. They struggled in the other games against Glasgow City, struggled against Hibs, and we're lucky to finish above Hearts. We finished above Hearts because by virtue of 3 points that went to the last game of the season. I think for a team that was really keen to build on the success of last season and keen to build on that first title, I think there is absolutely no question that they've gone back the way.
Yeah, when we spoke to Elena last weekend after the game against Rangers, she was, questioned about whether she was still the right person to take the team next season. She was adamant that she was, but Do you think, she's going to need more than just her enthusiasm for that? There needs to be other parts of this that need to come together for them to be a success. It's not all on her shoulders.
Yeah, of course. I think she's been frustrated, and I think she's barely concealed her frustrations at points at not being financially backed. I think that is a big question. I don't see that situation changing significantly. I don't think the women's team would be seen as a priority in terms of where money is being funneled by the club. I think the budget that she has to work with is unlikely to waver significantly over this coming summer, and I think this is a team that does need surgery. I think there needs to be changes within the team. I wonder on a personal level for Elena if she may feel as though her stock remains quite high. She made the FIFA Best Award back in December, a very prestigious shortlist that she was on. She came to the attention of those people because of what she'd done. She became the youngest coach within the Champions League. She delivered a title. I think her stock is high now, that she would be in a position to go and get another job elsewhere. I think if she stays at Celtic, she runs the risk of another poor season and that stock dipping further. So an interesting question for her on a personal level. I think the decision will be hers rather than a club decision. I think she has credit in the bank because of what happened last season at the minute, but I just wonder on a personal level if she might feel as though she maybe reached a ceiling with the title, with the Champions League qualification, because I don't think that this is a team that will be significantly more resourced.
Yeah, and of course Celtic went into the game in the final day at Celtic Park against Motherwell. They didn't have anything significant really to play for, and Elena had said before it, this is the last time this group will be together. She said that 2 or 3 times. Do you expect there to be a large exodus from Celtic this summer?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like that's what she's alluding to. I think though that she'll keep the crux and the core of the team. I think that of course it's not been a great season for them. And it'll be interesting. They've got a lot of good players in the squad though, so I don't know if I think it'll be a max exodus, but I do think that there's definitely going to need to be changes, because them being in 4th will not be deemed good enough by anybody in that dressing room. And yeah, they're going to need to improve next year, but I mean, I do think that they've underperformed. I think that the players that they've got can play better than they have this season in terms of that. I don't think that it's necessarily that players need to leave. I think that it's just that they need to maybe go to another level this year, because I mean, you're still looking at a team that had, Emma Lawton, who's the PFA Player of the Year. So, there's a lot of good in that team. I just think that they probably need to unlock another level.
I think there's questions to be asked at why players individually have gone backwards this season. If you look at Amy Gallagher was a standout player within the league last season. Scored in excess of 40 goals, and just why, the system that Celtic have not played to her strengths this season. And I think you have to ask those kind of questions, like why have there been individual players who have been nowhere near the performance levels that they are capable of and that they're expecting? Is that the way that the team has set up? Are there other issues?
I think that part of it's got to be attributed to the coach and the setup and what she's doing with the team on a daily basis, because there's other things that she's not responsible for. She doesn't get the budget, she doesn't get this player or that player that she wants, but when she's got the players in front of her, her job is to make them better. Yeah,
I thought there was a really interesting point from Elena in one of the post-match press conferences recently, where she pointed to the players that she had recruited and said they have been successful stories, like Emma Lawton this season, and said that she has, under her coaching, that they have come on, they've developed, they've got better. And I think it points as you can't argue with it, but also to me a sign of a good coach is that you improve players that you have, all players that you have. And I do wonder if there is some kind of split between, here's the players that the manager has brought in and here's the players that the manager inherited, and certainly it looks as though there is a kind of fracture within that squad.
Yeah, we'll move away from that now, and obviously you're here in the studio with us today. Delighted you're here, not delighted to see the brace.
I know, I'm glad the table's hiding it.
On the line, but it's the first time that anyone's seen you for a while, so you just want to tell us first of all sort of what happened.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously was struggling with a knee injury before Christmas, and I'd only been back in the squad for 2-3 weeks, and unfortunately when we were at Dundee United, it was a bad day for Thistle there. 3 of us getting season-ending injuries. I just got, unfortunately, in the middle of a sandwich tackle. Basically 2 of them came either side, and I honestly didn't actually think it was that serious at the time. We were all pretty content that it wasn't too bad, but obviously, as I said before, not a good outcome. But I think it's quite easy to be bitter maybe a little bit about it and say, oh God, why me? But I definitely think that's not the attitude to have. It's just about this is where I'm at, this is what I've got to deal with, and I'm determined to get back.
Yeah, I mean, that's to be commended, the attitude that you've got, and I think that's probably the type of person that you are. Alison and I have got to know you a little bit this season from your other job, PLZ, and I think that will stand you in good stead. But has there been moments where it's been difficult because this injury has not only affected your football career but all other areas of your life, everything basically?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that I'm saying it to try and believe it a little bit, that it's trying to, it's trying not to, it's really, honestly, it's really difficult because, as you said, it doesn't just affect your football, which for me it's just been what I love doing. I love playing football. I miss not playing football. But as you said, it affects work. It affects opportunities, because you see things happening and you go, I'd really like to do that. I'd really like to be able to do that, even just on a very simple basis with your friends. Your friends are going out, you'd love to go out, but I know it's better to not be drinking at the moment with a cyborg leg. So yeah, it's not easy at all. There's definitely moments when you kind of sit and it's quite frustrating, and I think that I'm obviously just at the start of the journey. I think that there'll definitely be ups and downs, but I've said that the main goal for it is to try and stay quite middle ground about it, expect the highs, expect the lows, and just really take every day as it comes, because if you try and put timestamps on that, I'd love to play by the end of next season, but I feel like if I do that, then I could rush it, so it's just about taking it day by day.
And you've got like a long journey back, we know that, but what are the plans, sort of the tentative plans for in terms of your football career going ahead from now?
So I think that basically the plan is the next operation is to get done. I need my ACL reconstructed, and then it's just looking at how I recover from that. I'm really lucky Partick Thistle are taking care of me. I'm really lucky that I've been at the club for 3 years now. I can't speak highly enough of the club, but I'm lucky that there's a lot of good people there that are looking after me and will continue to look after me. And I've always sat and said that I love football. I don't really do it for necessarily a hobby or fun. So as soon as I'm back to trying to get to the highest level I can in the game, and that's the goal. And you know what? That's exciting. I saw yesterday 2 girls that had been at Partick Thistle the end of the season, and in Callagib, obviously January they've gone and won a league title. That's amazing. It's an amazing achievement for them. But you look at that and it gives you motivation, because football's a funny game. Things can happen, and I think that's what I'm just determined, is that I want to get back and I want to then see, like I was before, how far I can go.
And there's been changes, obviously, at Partick since you've been out injured. Brian Graham has departed. He had his last game in charge at the weekend, and that's someone you were really close to as well.
Yeah, I've got nothing but good things to say about Brian. He's done an exceptional job since he got in at Thistle before me, but I mean, obviously this season was quite disappointing, but the 2 seasons before that, back-to-back top 6 finishes, a cup final, with the group of players that he's had and sort of probably the resources available, it's been a tremendous achievement. I wish him truly all the best. I think that wherever he'll go, he'll do very well wherever he goes, and he'll be a massive miss to the club, because we all laugh about him. I think I can still hear his voice sometimes when I close my eyes, but he'll be a tremendous miss to the club and to the group of players, because he unlocks things, and if it was easy to do to get into these positions, a lot of people get to a cup final. Teams would, and he unlocks things in players that I think that's why when he moves to management eventually, I'm sure that it'll be the exact same. So yeah, tremendous miss, and I wish him all the best.
And the other exit, of course, was Claire Docherty, and you went down for our final game to see her.
Yes, I got on my crutches and I went. I'm really close to Claire, and I, similar to Brian, that she's. What I've found so interesting at Partick Thistle is when I arrived, I didn't really know what to expect from the club. I'd come from Glasgow Women, and as soon as you walk in the door, people like Brian, people like Doc, they just ooze what it means to play football for Partick Thistle, if that makes sense. We're not the prettiest team. We certainly don't play tiki-taka football, but the crux of what was the success was, that hard work in, that putting the foot in where it, hurts, having your teammates back, and Doc, like Brian, just oozes that. And obviously I only got to play for her for a couple of years, but she was a fantastic player, a fantastic girl to have in the changing room, and I'm very lucky that I'm very good friends with her off the pitch, so I'll probably see her at fives or something like that, and I'm sure she'll be tearing it up there. But another massive miss for the club, because you know, as I said, you've got a spine of players that kind of carried Thistle, I think, through the past 2 seasons, and they were massive parts of that. So big misses, but I think it's exciting to see where the club will go next.
Yeah, well, listen, best of luck in your recovery. You know, everyone here is wishing you luck, and we'll see you back out on the pitch. And hopefully you can also open a laptop while you've got the cyborg leg in, so you're not getting any days off.
Exactly.
PLZ, sadly. That's all we have time for today. We'll be keeping you up to date across the week ahead of that Scottish Cup final at Hampden. Thank you to Alison McConnell, thank you to Cara Henderson, and thank you to you for watching.